Welcome to the Lectric Service Center. Today, we'll be going through the process of unboxing and setting up your new Lectric XPeak 2.0. Then after that, we will help you to get going on your first ride. This process will be exactly the same whether you are performing these steps on an XPeak step-through or a high-step model. Today, we'll be doing this on a step-through model. Before we begin this process, you'll need to make sure you have some tools ready to go. You'll need a box cutter, a 2.5mm hex wrench, a 3mm hex wrench, a 4mm hex wrench, and a 5mm hex wrench. You will also need shop rags, isopropyl alcohol, and a tire pump. We prefer to use the electric air pump. Along with those items, you will need the torque wrench that came with your XPeak 2.0, a hand ratchet, and a 14mm socket. Finally, you will need a small torque wrench with a 3mm hex socket, and a large torque wrench with a 17mm long socket. Don't worry about remembering all these tools. We will remind you what tools you'll need before each section. For this section, you'll need a box cutter. In box, with packing material, the XPeak 2.0 is a bit heavy, so we highly recommend using a friend to help carry the bike to where you will be performing this unboxing. On the sides of the box, there are cutout holes to help make carrying the box a little bit easier. Along the top and down the sides of the box, there is packing tape and tabs holding the box together. Using a box cutter, cut along the top and down the sides to free the tabs. Once all the tape is cut, pull the two tabs on the top of the box and pull the top flap open. Be careful while pulling the flap open, as there may be staples for added support during the shipping process. When the top flaps are open, you will need to undo the two tabs on either side of the box. Once those tabs are undone, the front of the box will fall open, revealing your Lectric XPeak 2.0. You might notice that your XPeak isn't quite in riding condition yet, but we'll fix that right now. Within the box, there are a number of smaller boxes. Some of these boxes are used for packing material, and some of these boxes have components for the bike itself. The first box is a small box set over the rear of the bike. The box contains components you will need for the bike. In this box, there are spare parts should you ever need them in the future, possible accessories that you might have purchased along with your bike, the battery charger, the pedals, a torque wrench with included torque wrench bits, and even more spare parts. You can set this all aside for now, as we will be going over it all later in the video. The next box you will see is a box that is set atop the rear rack. This is packing material and can be thrown away. A fun fact, all of Lectric e-bike's packing material can be recycled. The next box is laying over the front of the bike. This box contains the handlebars for your XPeak 2.0. You can remove this box and throw it away. Be careful when removing this box though, as there is cables connected to the handlebars that are also connected to the frame of the bike. On the rear wheel, there is a chalk that is used to stabilize the bike during the shipping process. This can be removed and thrown away. Now, in the front of the box, there is some packing material that can be removed and thrown away. Under that box is another large box. This box contains the front fender, if you bought fenders with your bike. You can set this aside, as we'll be installing the front fender later in this video. Now that the shipping material has been removed, you and a friend can lift the bike out of the box. Be careful with the handlebars, as they are not connected to the bike and will dangle freely. there is a cardboard chock attached to the bottom of the rear wheel. You can keep this on for now if you would like to help stabilize the bike as you continue to unpack the bike. Now that the bike is out of the box, you will notice there is packing material attached to the bike to protect it during the shipping process. You can go ahead and remove all that packing material. The packing material is held on with tape. You should be able to pull it off by hand, but if you need, you can use scissors or sharp object to help cut the tape. Be careful if you decide to cut the tape to not scratch the paint on the bike. On the non-drive side of the bike, the front wheel is attached to the frame with some twine. You can go ahead and untie the front wheel. Remove the packing material and set it aside for now, as we will be installing the front wheel later in this video. Continue removing the packing material from the bike. With the tires being deflated for shipping, the bike might be a little unstable. If you need, have a friend help you keep the bike stable while you are removing the packing material. Once you get to the front fork, you will see an instructional card that displays information about installing the front wheel. We recommend keeping this card in the case that you ever need help in the future to remove or install the front wheel. Finish removing the packing material from the front fork, including the material off the through axle. Now, on the front wheel, there is a rotor guard over the brake rotor and a dust cap over the opposite end cap. Make sure to remove these. It is important to note that on either side of the hub, there is an end cap. If the end cap is not present, the wheel will not fit inside of the fork. If the end cap is not present, please contact our customer support team before installing your front wheel. Now, if you need, have a friend lift the front end of the bike so that you will be able to fit the front wheel into the fork. The front wheel is held on with a through axle, making removal and installation a breeze. To remove the through axle, simply find the notch on the end of the through axle, place the lever in that notch, and turn counterclockwise until you are able to pull the through axle completely out of the dropouts. Now, make sure to remove the brake shim out of the brake caliper. This shim keeps the brake caliper pistons from being pushed in and seizing up when there is no rotor within the caliper. You can keep this for use in the future if you would like. Roll the wheel into the dropouts with the brake rotor on the non-drive side or the side of the fork that has the caliper on it. When rolling the wheel in, make sure to not bump the rotor on the caliper, as this may damage the rotor or the caliper. Once the wheel is correctly seated in the dropouts, you will need to reinstall the through axle. Make sure the lever of the through axle is on the non-drive side of the bike. Place the lever in the cutout notch and turn the lever clockwise until it starts to get a little tight. The through axle will fully tighten it down once the lever is flipped in. When the through axle is fully screwed in, make sure that the lever is running parallel to the fork. If it is not, back the through axle out a quarter turn, rotate the lever, and close it again. Having the lever parallel to the fork will ensure that it does not catch on anything as you're riding your XPeak 2.0. For this section, you'll need a tire pump. We will now be inflating the tires of the bike so it'll stand up on its own. On the sidewall of the tire, you will find the recommended PSI to pump your tire up to. The XPeak 2.0 tires have a max inflation of 20 PSI. Today, we will be pumping our tires up to 15 PSI. A quick note, since the tires on the XPeak are quite large, there's a chance that the bead is not fully seated onto the rim, like this. If that is the case, make sure to press the bead into the rim before pumping up your tire. Find the air valve and unscrew the valve cap. Set the PSI on your electric air pump. Place the pump nozzle on the valve. Then begin to air up your tires. While the tire is filling with air, make sure to be inspecting the bead on both sides of the tire to make sure that it is staying seated while filling. If the bead unseats, stop, deflate the tire, press the bead into the rim, and start again. Once the tire is filled up, remove the air pump and screw the valve cap back on. Repeat this process on the other tire. Once the tires are filled, you can go ahead and kick down the kickstand so the bike will stand on its own as you continue to set it up. For this section, you'll need the torque wrench that came with your XPeak and a 5mm hex wrench. Now we will be installing the handlebars of your Lectric XPeak 2.0. For easier shipping, the handlebars are shipped detached from the bike, but installing the XPeak handlebars is very easy. Just a couple of screws and you're done. Make sure to follow these steps exactly so you can properly and safely steer your bike. A quick note before we begin this step. The steer tube is on the top of the suspension fork, running through the headset. Using a 5mm hex wrench, remove the pre-installed M6 bolt on the top cap. The top cap is located right here. Remove the top cap and the extra spacer. It is important to keep track of this spacer, as you will need to place it back onto the steer tube when the handlebar stem is installed. Now, pull out the cardboard cylinder. You can throw this away, as you will not need it anymore. Slide the handlebar stem onto the steer tube, making sure that the stem is facing outwards. An easy way to make sure that you install the handlebars in the correct orientation is by the brake levers and the light pointing towards the front of the bike. For easier access to the top cap, go ahead and remove the packing material from the display if you have not already. Now, place the spacer on top of the stem. It is important that the spacer be placed on top of the stem. If it is not, the top cap will not properly fit back onto the steer tube. Now, place the top cap with the bolt back onto the steer tube on top of the spacer. Using a 5mm hex wrench, screw the M6 bolt that is in the middle of the top cap in until there is no longer any play in the headset. But don't tighten it down all the way, as you will need to torque it to spec. In order to torque the top cap bolt down to spec, you'll be using the torque wrench that came with your XPeak and the 5mm hex bit. Let's take a moment to familiarize ourselves with the torque wrench that came with your bike. There's a tab with different numbers printed on it. These are the torque values. So when torquing down a bolt, you'll need to push the handle down until the red arrows are pointing to the desired torque value. So, in this case, we'll be torquing the top cap bolt down to 6 Nm. So that means you will push the handle down until the red arrows line up with the 6 on the back tab. Once you've lined up the red arrow with the correct torque value, you can release pressure from the wrench, as the bolt will be torqued to spec. Now that we understand the torque wrench, let's go ahead and torque down the top cap bolt down to 6 Nm. Make sure the red arrows line up exactly with the 6 on the back tab. Once you have torqued the top cap bolt down to 6 Nm, hit it again with the torque wrench to confirm that it is torqued down to 6 Nm. Now, step over the bike and pull the brake levers. Attempt to move the handlebars forward and backwards. There should be no play in the headset cap. You will be able to tell that the top cap is too loose if when moving the handlebars, the headset cap has play in it. If there is play in the headset cap, like this, do not move on, and repeat the top cap torquing process. If there continues to be play in the headset cap, please contact our customer support team before going on your first ride. Next, step over the bike and line the handlebars up with the front wheel. If the handlebars aren't quite moving independently from the front wheel, use your feet to brace the front wheel in place. If the stem and the handlebars are not lined up with the front wheel, you'll need to keep working to line them up. Once the stem and handlebars are lined up with the front wheel, you will need to snug down the two pinch bolts on the base of the stem with a 5mm hex wrench. Do not tighten these pinch bolts down all the way, as you'll need to torque them to spec. Again, using the torque wrench and the 5mm bit, torque the pinch bolts down to 10 Nm. Once you torque the pinch bolts down to 10 Nm, make sure to hit them with the torque wrench again to ensure that they are torqued down correctly to 10 Nm. Finally, step over the front wheel and pinch the wheel between your legs. Grab the handlebars and attempt to twist them. You should not be able to move them at all. If there's movement in the handlebars without movement in the front wheel, do not continue, and repeat the pinch bolt tightening process until there is absolutely no movement in the handlebars. If there continues to be movement in the handlebars, please contact our customer support team before going on your first ride. On your Lectric XPeak 2.0, there is a serial number stamped onto the front of the head tube. Take note of this number in the case that you need to contact our customer support team. We also recommend registering your bike onto bikeindex.org in the case that your bike is lost or stolen. Now we will be moving on to the installation of the front fender. If you purchase fenders with your Lectric XPeak 2.0, the rear fender will already be installed. If you did not purchase fenders, you can skip ahead in this video. For this section, you will need a 4mm hex wrench. First, you will need to remove the front fender that you pulled out of the bike box earlier. Then, remove the packing material from the fender. Now, on the back side of the front fork brace, there is a bolt that will need to be removed with a 4mm hex wrench. Keep track of this bolt though, as you will need it to install the front fender. Now, halfway down the fork lowers, on the back side, there is another bolt that will also need to be removed with a 4mm hex wrench. These will need to be removed with a 4mm hex wrench to screw in the fender stays. Then, on the fender, there is a fender hanger tab that has a protective cover on it. Make sure to remove that. Now, slide the fender between the fork brace and the tire, and line the hole on the fender hanger tab with the hole on the back of the fork brace. Next, hand tighten the M5 bolt through the fender hanger into the fork brace. Now, down the fork lowers, insert the M5 bolts you removed through the fender stays and into the mounting points on the backside of the fork lowers. You can tighten these bolts down all the way using a 4mm hex wrench. Then, back up at the fork brace, lift the fender up so it is not resting on the tire, and finish tightening the M5 bolt with a 4mm hex wrench. Once that is tightened all the way down, give the wheel a spin to make sure that there is no rubbing. Let's take a moment to familiarize ourselves with the safety tags on the handlebar of your XPeak 2.0. On the left side of the handlebars, there's a tag with information on it that will give you tips on how to get the most out of your XPeak and how to safely ride your bike. There is also another tag with a QR code on it that when scanned will take you to the terms of service, which includes information about your 1-year manufacturer's warranty. Once you have familiarized yourself with the information on these tags, you can go ahead and remove them. We recommend keeping these for your records in case you need a refresher later on. While you are up here, you can go ahead and remove the protective plastic from the display. Moving forward, let's go ahead and get your battery charging so it'll be ready to go for your first ride. Attached to the handlebars is a set of keys. Go ahead and remove those keys. Insert the key into the keyhole on the non-drive side of the bike and turn the key clockwise. The battery will unlock, but not come completely out of the frame. In order to fully remove the battery, you will need to press the release button on the other side of the bike. When pressed, the battery will fall from the frame of the bike. Make sure you have a hand placed under it to ensure that it does not fall to the ground. Inside of the battery charger box, there is, you guessed it, a battery charger. The battery charger comes in two parts: the charger adapter and the wall plug. Remove the plastic from the charger and the twist ties from the cable if you wish. Next, plug the wall charger into the charger adapter. Next, plug the charger into the charger port on the battery. Finally, plug the charger into the wall outlet. You will know the charger is plugged in and charging when the light on the charger changes from green to red. Once the battery is fully charged, the light on the charger will once again turn green. Lectric sends its batteries half charged, but a dead battery will take between 6 and 10 hours to return to a full charge. Alternatively, if you would like, you can charge the battery while it is installed in the bike. To do that, simply plug the charger into the charging port that is located on the frame on the non-drive side of the bike. While your battery charges, let's continue to set up your Lectric XPeak 2.0. First, on the handlebars, you will notice a number of cables that are coming out of the front and feeding back into the frame of the bike. You might also notice that one of these cables is unplugged. The unplugged cable is the display cable, and it is unplugged during shipping to prevent power drain during the shipping process. To plug it in, simply line up the arrows on the male and female quick plugs, then push them together until you hear a click. You will know it is fully plugged in when you no longer see the green color from the inside. On the rear of the bike, there is another cable that will be unplugged to prevent power drain during the shipping process. This is the rear light cable. Plug this cable in by lining up the arrows on the male and female quick plugs and push them together. You will know they are fully plugged in when you hear a click and you no longer see the red color from the inside. Let's continue setting up your Lectric XPeak 2.0 by installing the pedals. If you haven't already, unwrap the pedals from the plastic. On each pedal, there is an R or an L stamped into them. This signifies which side of the bike the pedal is to be installed on. The pedal with the R stamped onto it is to be installed on the drive side of the bike, or the side of the bike that has the chain on it. The pedal with the L stamped into it is to be installed on the non-drive side of the bike, or the side of the bike that does not have the chain on it. The Lectric XPeak has quick release pedals, making pedal installation and removal a breeze. The collar on the end of the crank pulls out in order to lock the pedal into place. To install the pedal, first make sure you are installing the correct pedal on the correct side of the bike. Insert the pedal stem into the collar lock, pull the collar lock outwards, and let go of the collar lock. This will lock the pedal into place. Give the pedal a tug to make sure it is properly locked in. Repeat this process on the opposite side pedal. Now we will be going over some checks that you can make to make sure that your XPeak is safe and ready to ride. For this step, you will need isopropyl alcohol and shop rags or paper towels. To start, we will be checking the brakes of your Lectric XPeak 2.0. First, pull the brake levers and make sure that the levers are not touching your fingers or the grips. Then you can perform a rock test. Pull both brake levers and attempt to move the bike forward and backwards. The bike should stay in one place. If the bike moves or the brake levers hit your fingers or the grips, you may need to perform a brake adjustment. Please watch this video to learn how to do that. Next, you will want to clean your brake rotors to clear any contaminants that may have gotten onto them during the shipping process. Down at the brake rotor, using isopropyl alcohol sprayed onto a shop rag or paper towel, clean the brake rotor, making sure to lift the front wheel to spin it in order to reach the entire rotor. Repeat this process on the other brake rotor. For this section, you'll need the torque wrench that came with your XPeak, along with a large torque wrench and a 17mm long socket. Next, we'll be checking the torque values of some of the components on the cockpit. For these checks, you'll need the 4mm hex bit that came with the torque wrench. First, you'll be checking the torque of the brake levers. The bolts for the brake levers are located on the front of the handlebars. Make sure those bolts are torqued down to 6 Nm. Make sure to check all 4 bolts. Next, down at the rear wheel, you'll be checking the torque value of the rear axle nuts. Using a torque wrench and a 17mm long socket, make sure the rear axle nut is torqued down to 35 Nm. Do this on both sides of the axle. Now you'll need to check that the C-post collar lock is tight enough so that the C-post won't slide down while you're riding your XPeak. Open the seat clamp and tighten the clamp knob a couple of turns. You will know the collar is tight enough because when you close the clamp, the C-post will not move when you twist and lift the saddle. If the C-post moves up or down, or twists when you pull the saddle, you'll need to turn the knob a few more times. A quick note, we'll be going over the sizing of the bike, including C-post height later, but always make sure that the C-post is inserted past the minimum insertion point. The final safety check you'll need to perform is simply a visual inspection of the bike. If you notice anything wrong or out of place, please contact our customer support team before going on your first ride. For this section, you'll need a 2.5mm hex wrench, a 3mm hex wrench, a hand ratchet, a 14mm socket, and a small torque wrench with a 3mm hex socket. Before we move forward, let's make some adjustments to the bike in order to maximize the ride safety and comfort. Let's start with the cockpit. The LCD display brackets will probably already be loose enough for you to adjust the angle of the display without loosening them, but if not, use a 3mm hex wrench to loosen the N4 bolts on the display brackets a bit. Adjust the display to a comfortable viewing position, then tighten the bolts down. Don't forget the best part of any unboxing, the satisfying plastic peel. Next, if needed, loosen the M4 bolt on the throttle bracket using a 3mm hex wrench. Adjust it to a comfortable position, then torque it down to 1 Nm using a small torque wrench and a 3mm hex socket. Then, if needed, loosen the bolt on the button pad with a 2.5mm hex wrench. Adjust it to a comfortable position, then tighten the bolt back down. Finally, if needed, loosen the M6 bolt on the shifter bracket, adjust it to a comfortable position, then tighten it back down. If you would like, you can also adjust the angle of your saddle. Using a hand ratchet and a 14mm socket, loosen the nuts on both sides of the saddle rails. Adjust the saddle angle position as needed. Then tighten the nuts back down. Now that your XPeak is unpacked and safe to ride, let's learn how to actually work it. Once your battery is charged, you will want to insert it back into the XPeak. On the top of the battery, there's a button that when pressed will show you the battery level. It will also be how you wake up your battery. The XPeak battery will go into sleep mode after 48 hours of inactivity. So if you are unable to turn your bike on, always first check to make sure that the battery is awake. An important note: before inserting the battery back into the frame of the bike, make sure the rubber plug in the charger port is fully inserted and flush with the battery plate. If the rubber plug is protruding, the battery will not seat within the frame of the bike, and you might not be able to power your bike on. On the bottom plate of the down tube, you'll see battery prongs that will need to be lined up with the ports on the bottom of the battery. Align the battery with the frame of the bike, making sure that it is in the correct orientation. Then insert the bottom of the battery first. Once the bottom of the battery is in the frame of the bike, push the top of the battery into the bike. We find it easiest to wrap your hand around the battery and the frame of the bike, then squeeze. You will know the battery is locked into place fully when you hear 2 clicks. One initial click for the battery to be locked into the frame, and a second click for the battery to be fully locked and seated into the frame. A note: you do not need the keys in the bike in order to ride it. So, once the battery is in the frame, you can remove the keys from your bike and keep them in a safe spot during your ride. You will only need the keys again if you need to remove the battery. Now, up at the cockpit, you'll see a button pad with 3 buttons on it: a power button and a plus and a minus button. This button pad will control all the electronics on the bike. To turn the bike on, press and hold the power button for 3 seconds. The LCD display will illuminate, signifying that your XPeak is on. The LCD display homepage displays some information pertinent to the riding of your bike. On the top is your estimated battery life. Below that will be the wattage being put out by your motor while riding. Below that is your speed. Below that is your pedal assist level. Then finally at the bottom is a data field that can be changed by tapping on the power button. It will default to odometer, but when you tap the power button, it'll change to your trip odometer, the battery voltage, battery current, and trip time. With the button pad, you can also access the settings of the bike. Hold down the plus and minus button simultaneously. You will be taken to a screen that reads a number, followed by a smaller P. This means that you are in the settings menu. You can change the settings page by tapping the power button, and change the actual setting by tapping the plus or minus button. If you would like more detail about the default settings, please consult the user's manual, where you will find the functions of each settings page. On the button pad, you can toggle on and off the front and rear lights. Simply hold the plus button for 3 seconds and the lights will illuminate. You will know they are on when you see the green light icon come up on the display. To turn the lights off, simply hold the plus button again for 3 seconds. The plus and minus buttons also control the pedal assist levels when you are on the home screen. You can press the plus button to raise the pedal assist level, and the minus button to lower the pedal assist level. All Lectric e-bikes come standard with 5 levels of pedal assist. Pedal assist will activate if the display is set to level 1 through 5 and the crank arms begin to rotate. The motor will turn on and help you while you pedal to maybe get up a hill or make pedaling a little bit easier when you need it. The Lectric XPeak 2.0 features a torque sensor system. This means that each pedal assist level is regulated by power manipulation and speed. This system applies to pedaling while the throttle follows the PWR assistance level, unless unlocked in setting page 22 and the setting being set to 002. In pedal assist 1, there is the least amount of assistance. While riding in Pedal Assist 1, you will feel a light onset of power for a more controlled takeoff. In Pedal Assist 5, there is more power. While riding in Pedal Assist 5, you will feel a strong onset of power with full torque for a fast and intense experience. When you're in Pedal Assist 1, in the default assistance level, your bike will get 20% of the watts of input power assistance and will cap the speed at 9 miles per hour. On Pedal Assist 2, your bike will get 80% of the watts of input power assistance and will remain capped at 15 miles per hour. In Pedal Assist 3, your bike will get 150% of the watts of input power assistance and will remain capped at 20 miles per hour. When you're in Pedal Assist 4, your bike will get 300% of the watts of input power assistance and will remain capped at 20 miles per hour. And in Pedal Assist 5, your bike will get 500% of the watts of input power assistance and will remain capped at 20 miles per hour. Along with Pedal Assist, there is also a throttle that will give you power without the need of pedaling. The throttle will only activate when you are in Pedal Assist 1 through 5. For safety, the throttle will not activate if you are in Pedal Assist 0. On the right side of the handlebars, there is a gear shifter. This button shifts the gear down, removing resistance from the pedal stroke, and this button shifts the gear up, adding resistance to the pedal stroke. Now that your XPeak 2.0 is unpacked, set up, and you know how to work it, let's head outside and go on your first ride. To ride your bike comfortably, you might need to adjust the height of the saddle. To do that, unlock the seat post collar lock, make sure that the seat post is not pulled out past the minimum insertion point, and pull the saddle up so that it sits right about level with your hip bone. While the height of your saddle is personal preference, we find this height the most comfortable when starting out. Now, head down to the pedals and give them one last tug to make sure that they are locked into place. Your XPeak comes with an RST Renegade suspension fork that can be adjusted to match your style of riding. On the right side of the fork is your lockout adjustment. On the left side of the fork is the preload. First, let's adjust the lockout on the right side of the fork. If you would like a bit more suspension travel and cushion, you will turn the dial clockwise. This can be used when you are on harsher terrain like a rocky trail or single track. If you would like your ride to be stiffer and more rigid, you will turn the dial counterclockwise. This can be used on smoother terrain like pavement or a smooth trail. On the left side of the fork is the preload dial. This adjustment adds or decreases tension on the fork spring. This adjustment can be tailored to every rider differently. To make the front end softer and easier to compress, turn the dial counterclockwise. To make the front end stiffer and harder to compress, turn the dial clockwise. The bike will come out of the box with the preload in the lightest setting. Before riding, always make sure you are wearing a well-fitting helmet. Kick the kickstand up, step over the frame of the bike, firmly place your foot flat on the pedal, push off, and place your foot on the other pedal. Now you're riding. We always recommend starting your ride in Pedal Assist 0 and in the lowest or easiest gear. Once you are comfortable in the lowest and easiest gear, you can start to shift up and down to find the ideal gear for your ride. To shift up, making the ride a little bit more challenging, press the back lever on the shifter. And to shift down, making the ride a little bit easier, press the top lever. Once you find the ideal gear, you can start introducing some assistance from Pedal Assist. When you get the hang of riding your Express, you can change your gears and pedal assist levels throughout your ride to find the best riding experience through any situation. And once you're ready, you can use the thumb throttle to relax your legs a little bit. Thanks for riding with us today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our customer support team at contact@lectricebikes.com or give us a call at 602-715-0907. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you out there.